Well, there's a package here for you, man.
Oh, what is it? Oh, do you reckon it's my...
It's not cards. It just doesn't smell right.
Maybe my Lush order? Does it smell like soap made out of raisins or pears?
No, it doesn't smell like expired cream either.
So it's definitely not a face scrub from Lush.
No.
It does smell a bit oceany?
That can't be right. You obviously didn't order any fish. You're a vegan. Oh, unless it's that nori you ordered from Japan.
No, that came yesterday. Oh, I'll just open it. Here, give it.
I bet it's that kilo of sand you ordered for that photo shoot you're doing. I still don't understand why you need it when it's just a close-up of your face.
I need it to get in character for my mermaid role. There we go.
This is junk, Walt. God, is that a jellyfish?
Yeah, but it died of natural causes and probably climate change, I guess.
Why did you order all of this? There's an old boot in here.
It's a self-assembly product. I have to put it all together.
What on earth are you making with a boot, a dead jellyfish, 4 chestnuts, some brass knuckles, and a jar of marmalade?
I'm obviously putting together a Lush bath bomb.
I think the name for that would be like Paddington Bear homeless at a beach.
That's
It's got
sort
the
of
marmalade,
the naming.
the old boot.
With the Lush naming scheme, it would probably be more like Paddington's vibe.
Yeah.
You know, like
Paddington's Day Out.
essence of Paddington.
Ode to Paddington.
Ode to Paddington. Yeah, that's totally what it would be. Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast, and I can only assume commercial growers of palm trees. I'm your host, Walt.
Hello, Commander players. I am the duck that walked up to that lemonade stand, James.
Sure. And before we get to the transmission, Patreon. We have a Patreon. We haven't talked about it in a little while, but it's like helps us a lot.
It helps us an extraordinary amount. We've actually just made another purchase from our money that we've earned from Patreon.
Yeah.
We've bought a brand new face cam for Walt specifically because Walt's old face cam was
bad.
basically a potato with a hole in it.
It wasn't even 1080p. Like it was square aspect ratio.
In fairness, you bought it in lockdown just so you could call your dad. That was like the main reason.
It was like $30. It weighed about 10 grams
from
in total.
J-Car,
yeah, something like that. Look, the reason that James's face cam was shaped the way that it was, James's face cam is actually 1080p. I was cropping it so that we matched. So it's cut. Actually, you lied.
I was on a laptop, so I'm on a MacBook. My webcam is a MacBook,
true.
which is famously a shit webcam.
But you did lie because it's not just an upgrade for me. Because upgrading this face cam for me has actually upgraded yours to the full aspect ratio that it has on offer for it. So
we're also streaming in the same room.
That's true. I mean,
when this episode comes out, we will have streamed in the same room.
So you've already
didn't
seen
we
it.
look great? Didn't we look awesome?
You've already seen it, but it actually just got set up today for us in real time.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And thanks to our patrons. So patreon.com/getcommandedpodcast. You can also join the cohort and support the amazing stuff that we do.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, without the Patrons, Walt and I would probably have maybe stopped doing this genuinely. I think it's been such a good motivator for us. And as a general update for all of you lovely listeners out there, we do have a bit of like official business stuff to let you guys in on just because I want to.
Yeah.
Walt and I are official business partners now.
Yeah.
We have our own ABN for the Get Commanded podcast.
Yep.
We're working with a ton of companies now. Like, I'm not promising anything, but I was DMing with Infinity Tokens the other day.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Insanity. I was also DMing with Masked Wolf, the rapper from Sydney.
Who apparently plays Magic. That's news to us as well.
Unbelievably cool. So,
Yeah.
like, Walt and I are, like, genuinely real operating business owners, I guess, now. And it is so down to the fact that you guys out there are listening and supporting the content. And if you want to support us, Patreon is genuinely the best way of doing it. So patreon.com/getcommanded. Thank you guys so much.
It makes a huge difference, for sure. But we do have an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy, from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
member of our cohort states, "In the pursuit of power, Commander players frequently leave behind the crucial ingredients of flavour and fun. Players would be better served by deck building outside the box."
New member of the cohort. This must be Wizard Down Under,
Yeah,
I
I
assume.
reckon this is from one of the other space commanders who does not appear on the mic, thankfully for our levels of terror. We're scared enough of that guy.
I don't want to invite anyone else in this room. I'm nervous enough sitting here with you.
The other one is also like extra strange, so it freaks us out. Yeah, it's coming to us from Patreon, by the way.
Yeah, what a good time to shout Patreon out.
Yeah.
It's like we almost planned that, didn't we?
It's almost like that.
Almost. We
It's a
just
bit like
heard
that.
this command now. Is this bit getting old yet?
Look, we're down powering again, is the gist that I'm getting from this.
This is awesome. Considering we went from like a good 2-week stint of nothing but CDH, I'm really glad to be back in the realm of like playing Commander for flavor, fun, and casual weirdness. That's like that's where I learnt to love Commander, how I got into CDH, but it's good to be back home.
Yeah, it's our home turf and it's where we like to hang out. So, yes, we're once again moving away from the objectively right choices in deck building, and that's what we're talking about, we assume, when the Space Commanders say pursuit of power. I think first, so they want us to move towards flavor and fun. So that'll be the focus of the episode.
Yep.
I think we need to focus on actually that pursuit of power first, so we know what we're kind of getting away from.
Yeah, so if you see, if you're deck building and you think, or if you see the things we're about to talk about, maybe you're moving down the pursuit of power road, and you should select reverse, come back, and take the fork in the road where the cowled merchant that does the thrifty interlude is standing and saying, "Go down this road."
Yeah. It's strange. There's spines. Yes, that is where you should go.
Sure,
According to the cowled merchant. Spines are good.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure whether he means spines of plants or spines of people, but
I guess we're about to drive down that road. Let's find out together.
Find out what kind of spines they are.
So the objectively right way of building.
Yes.
This is the thing of that you hear. This is objectively correct to include this in your deck. And when we're talking about CDH, obviously the objectively right way of doing things is what we're looking for.
Yeah, we're talking about power.
Yeah.
We're talking about, efficiency. Like, these words that get bandied about are the ones that are pushing us towards power. And, like, don't get us wrong. If you're looking for consistency in your deck, this is where you should go.
And there's, like, phrases that you hear a lot of Commander players say. Like, just recently, there was a card from Murders at Markov Manor. I'm struggling to remember the name now, but it basically does exactly what Thrill of Possibility does. But you can, instead of discarding a card...
You can sacrifice an artifact?
Exactly.
Yeah, this is Pauper legal. People are talking about this for Pauper as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's just objectively better to include in your deck, right?
Then Thrill of Possibility. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it gives you two options. You choose the one that's best for you now. And if you top deck Thrill of Possibility with no cards in hand... It's a bad card.
Yeah.
If you top deck this new one from Markov Manor,
and you've got a blood token or a treasure or anything,
even like an ancient den,
an
sacrifice
artifact land.
that. Like, that's so good. Like,
totally.
It's when you hear these conversations about people being like, "Oh, isn't it just objectively better to put this in your deck?" That is what the pursuit of power looks like. That's like you're trying to make your deck as most efficient, as most good. My English bad. That's impossible. But you're trying to make your deck as objectively correct as it can be. And that's not what we're looking for.
No, and I think there's a specific website that we're going to have to avoid for the purposes of this, which is EDH Rec. Unfortunately, well, look, it's a good thing that mostly people build good decks, because otherwise EDH Rec would be useless.
Yeah, EDH Rec basically functions on the assumption that people out there build good decks. You could actually break EDH Rec if you wanted to by creating billions of decks that are just random assortment of cards and terrible, and it would ruin the algorithm of how EDH Rec works. By the way, don't do that.
No.
We love the guys at EDH Rec.
We do like EDH Rec a lot. It's very, very useful, but of course, yes, the things that most people are doing are probably the powerful and synergistic things. So if we're moving away from it, we're probably best to avoid EDH Rec.
I think just in general, like most online lists are built pretty optimally.
Yeah, I mean, this is where EDH Rec is pulling from, right? Yeah.
Like all those deck building websites like Tapped Out, Moxfield, Architect, all of these websites, anyone that builds on there, EDH Rec pulls their data from and, puts it in as like, these are the most high played cards with this commander.
Yeah.
I think when you're like saying, okay, don't go to EDH Rec, you also kind of have to say, just don't go to online lists as well. You have to kind of also be like, all right, steering away from people's builds already.
Yeah.
Because what we're looking for here, in my opinion, when I heard the Space Commanders say this is what you don't want to do, is we're looking for uniqueness.
Well, we're going outside the box, right? That's what they talked about,
Yes.
So there's obviously going to be cards that appear often on EDH Rec, that appear often, as you say, on those online lists that I think we need to avoid. And they're staples, basically. It's our Rhystic Studies, our Smothering Tides, our Swords to Plowshares, even Soul Ring, Demonic Tutor. Like, the cards that we see all the time, we see because they work in most decks and so are good in most decks. But also, if we're chasing, more uniqueness, more flavor, more fun, we're going to need to move away from those.
Like, when was the last time you went on to a blue, like a commander that has blue in their color identities EDH Rec page and not seen Counterspell or Rhystic Study?
It's rare.
It's rare. It's
very
really rare.
It's they're staples for a reason, right? Like, they make most of the decks that you put them in stronger, which is why they appear so often on EDH Rec, because people are going, this card's sick, I want to put it in my deck. But yes, they are going to move us away from the unique side of the power level scale.
For sure.
I also think I'm going to sort of out myself here again, maybe like the 6th time. If you're a tinkerer like me,
our podcast is slowly becoming why tinkerers are actually really bad for our format.
Which is so terrible for me as an endorsement of me, because it's like, Walt is a silly goose. But yes, tinkering naturally, as I've said before, does tend to bring about a more powerful, a more consistent way of playing your deck, which is great if that's what you're looking for.
Because you're looking for upgrades when you tinker, right? That's what you were looking for.
But I think most of the time when we're looking for upgrades, we tend to look at the cards that are more flavorful and more fun, but less powerful and less synergistic, and those are the cards we cut in that process as we're putting the new cards in. The new, like those Thrill of Possibility, strictly better versions, we're going to cut the Thrill of Possibility for that. And we do a similar process just when we tinker, I think.
Yeah, I think that I've seen you do this a lot, where you've had this like really big battle with it, like an internal conflict of, I don't want to take out this silly, flavorful card, but it is the right thing to do to put this spell in. I'm like, just leave the weird goblin game in your deck. Just it's weird, wacky, play it.
It's kind of the spirit of the deck. And sometimes you cut the cards that are the reason you built the deck in the first place. And that's a really sad time.
Yeah.
I think I'm also going to say, though, that this is a great episode for those kind of tinkerers and general kind of optimizers of their lists, because I think you can optimize your deck for flavor and for fun and not necessarily optimize for power in that process.
Yeah, I think this is the really interesting thing, especially after we've just done a CDH tournament on our Twitch stream and maybe have a few new listeners who predominantly play CDH. If you're struggling to get into casual, this is like the switch in your brain that you switch from playing to win to playing for this weird fun experience that we call Commander. And that's sometimes that having that switch in your brain is such like a enlightenment. It's like you've reached a new level of ascension to your almighty being. It's like, oh my God, I don't have to win.
Yeah.
I can try and win, and winning is fun.
Yeah.
But like, I can play this weird card that I've always thought is good.
But that you've never found that, that deck for, because you've always been building for power. Look, it's just like a different hat you can put on, and not everyone's going to enjoy the casual player's hat when they put it on. But if you have that hat that you can occasionally put on, it's just going to allow you to have more diverse Commander experiences, right? Like,
this hat is definitely a jester's hat. For complete transparency, if a CDH player's hat is like a Peaky Blinders hat with a razor blade hidden in the cap,
interesting.
This is like a jester's hat.
My thinking for a CDH player's hat was like a cowboy hat.
Oh, like
gunslinger.
This town ain't big enough for the four of us. One of us is gonna have to be the last person standing at this table.
Yeah, he's putting on the what's it called, the metal plate, and walking out in.
That's like full Ned Kelly.
Yeah, big time.
I love that.
Ned Kelly, this famously CDH player.
Yeah, Australian legend, very big on Simic.
Yeah. Anyway, with all of that in mind, so there's obviously the things we're moving away from. We should move towards the things that the Space Commanders were telling us about. The two words they used were flavor and fun.
That's the ones we kept coming back to when we were talking about this as well.
Straight up. I think we should just start with flavor.
Sure.
So we're optimizing our deck for flavor. I think the first thing we should look at is the commander. of the deck.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually the first thing you pick when you're building a commander deck, right? Unless you have this like weird, I want to build a specific type of deck, and then like you find the commander for it. But typically, a lot of us build commanders by finding a legendary creature or a planeswalker that says it can be your commander, or a vehicle that says it can be your commander, or a background, or commander's complicated now. But we usually look at a card and we're like, I like that card for whatever reason, whether its mechanic is good or the flavor is good, right? Sometimes you'll look at a card like, even stuff that I've built in the past, I'm like, oh, Scorpion God. I love the flavor of this Scorpion poisoning other creatures. Like, it's a neg 1 counters deck. I love the flavor of this, like, slowly you get weaker because the Scorpion sting,
Yeah.
I love that.
I think this is a really common thing that draws us towards commanders. As you say, like, there will be gameplay things that attract us to commanders. Sometimes you just look at a commander and go, that looks really interesting and weird. I'm drawn to that. But I know so many people who have picked a particular character and maybe it's their Teysa Karlov, or like
there are people at our game store that have an unhealthy obsession with Teysa Karlov, and if you're
listening,
listening,
very disappointed now. By the way,
I am straight up calling you out.
But like it's definitely part of the thing that can draw you towards a particular commander,
for sure.
And the commander is at the helm of the deck. It's the card we always get access to. It's going to form a really key part of the feeling of playing a deck. Is going to be, what does this commander do? What does it look like? What is
its character's opinions and like what are their values? What do they value as a character?
I think we can look like at just one set to see this, and I'm going to take us back, as we often do on this podcast, to Throne of Eldraine.
That period of Magic's history where it was basically the Wild West. It was the storm before the storm that was COVID.
It's like immediately pre-COVID, isn't it?
It was immediately pre-COVID.
Like a month before.
If anything, Throne of Eldraine was a warning for what is to come for the world. If we could travel back in time, that would be the thing
That's
I
where we would warn
about.
people, for sure. But like, I want to shout out, I have a funny feeling that the Space Commander who requested this episode is going to like this.
Wizard Down Under?
Wizard Down Under.
Yeah.
Wizard Down Under has a Korvold Fakehurst King deck.
Yeah, we played against this
in our
Patreon game.
We also challenged this. We shouted this out on the podcast as like, imagine if someone built a Korvold deck that was actually based around the fact that Korvold is cursed to eat all the time, and so you just eat food. And Wizard Down Under was like, sounds good.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. And we've played against it, and it's really, really fun.
It was the first time I've sat down against a Korvold deck and smiled for the whole game.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely, like, Wizard Down Under, this is your moment on the podcast. You requested this episode to the Space Commander cohort.
Yeah.
They got it through. You're part of their team now. But this weird challenge that we made to our listeners to make this deck work and make it fun, you nailed.
100%.
We'll link it in the show notes so you can go have a look. You will not see another Korvold list like this online, purely because I assume Nick didn't use EDH Rec when he was building this.
I think you'd have to avoid it, to be honest, just to not do dockside things that everybody else is doing in
Treasure
Korvold.
Storm, oh my god.
But like, this is what the card was designed for, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, Throne of Eldraine was the food set. I don't think food existed.
No, food was the mechanic highlight of that set.
Yeah. It was food and adventure, right? They were like the sort of key like things that it was built around. And Korvold is clearly, you can see in the art, he has been cursed to eat.
His most recent card it calls him a glutton or something. I think it's Korvold gluttonous something.
Yeah. It functions similarly mechanically, not as busted. But
yeah, they definitely nerfed him a little bit.
It does a similar thing, but that's what he was designed for. And like, in a similar way, we could look at Cullen, for Tulane, for those who like to butcher pronunciation. It's such a weird thing to out about somebody.
But it's weirdly commonly spoken about that character. Cullen is like... Anyway.
He's the teller of tales, right? He was built for adventures. That's the whole thing. He's telling the story of people going on adventures, and that's why he triggers when you cast creature spells, but also why he bounces creatures back to your hand.
Yeah, so you can recast them again.
Yeah, the gameplay loop here is a creature goes on an adventure, you cast it from exile, trigger Cullen, draw a card, drop a land, it comes in, and then, if you want the adventure back, you bounce him back to your hand.
Well...
Yes?
I have a brew idea. I have straight up, this is not in our script. This is me thinking of this on the fly. Sure. Listeners out there, I challenge you. Build a Hullen deck that's about adventuring. into the dungeon using the party mechanic from D&D or using the adventure spells. Go brew, my beautiful little children. Go brew.
I think that's just wide enough. Like, I think if you just went adventures, you would eventually scrape the barrel and end up with some bad adventure cards. But I think if you looked at all of the adventure into the dungeon stuff, the party stuff, and the adventure stuff, there would be enough good cards. I think this is feasible.
You heard it, listeners. Wizard Down Under, new challenge for you.
Yeah.
Hullen, but built as an adventuring deck. Go tell some stories.
I like that. That's very cool. But, you know, this is what the card's implying in the aesthetic, right? He's holding a book. He's telling a story.
And he's almost like bringing people in to retell their story, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, you know, bouncing a creature back to hand so they can do it again and
he's
like go on a new adventure.
Again.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, no, hold on. Someone's like, hey, Colin, tell that one about the Bone Crusher giant again. And he's like, God damn it. All right.
I'll pay 2 mana and turn sidewards and do it again.
Let's do it again.
I'll deal 2 damage to this creature and here's a 5/6 or whatever the power toughness on that card was.
Straight up. Something like that. And I want to talk about one more Throne of Eldraine card. And this is the one that I have built in a Vorthos way, which is Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot she was actually part of Throne of Eldraine.
There's like a cycle of 3-color, like, Throne of Eldraine legends.
Yeah.
There's one more that I'm forgetting at the moment. But anyway, yes, Sir Gwyn cares about knights and equipment, but a lot of people just build it as like a... Voltron. You know, put all the swords on Sir Gwyn. They equip for free. This is so good. She's got Vigilance and Menace. Like, I'm going to attack and kill people so quickly. And I was like, that's cool, but she gives you cards for every knight that's equipped that attacks.
Yeah.
Like, obviously you want to go wide.
And I think that's the key about, like, finding commanders that are so easy to build by breaking them. I think a lot of... And this is the thing about using the internet, is you go online and you see a spoiler of a new card and people are trying to break it.
Yeah.
And very rarely do people... I think there's a few people that do this, but not enough, in my opinion. Look at the card and go, wow, I love the flavor of Sir Gwyn leading the charge of a bunch of different knights. Everyone's like, holy hell, you can equip all the Sword of Feast and Famine, Fire and Ice and Light and Shadow for free and kill your opponent super quickly.
Yeah, like, look, I get the appeal. You know, I think as people who engage in the mechanics of Magic, and especially of Commander, it's natural to look at a card and go like, how do you break this? You know, like, what's my in here? What's my strategy? But I think you can, there's like lots more you can discover about Magic and about the essence of a creature type and a feeling of a color identity when you focus on the vibe that a Commander brings. So yeah, like my Sir Gwyn deck, for those who don't know, is all about battle and chivalry and, you know, taking like the card Valorous Stance is in there.
But like, you've built every part of this deck around that. Like, even your lands. You chose specific lands
that had like castles in the art.
Yeah, like Castle Ardenvale's in there.
Yeah, Castle Ardenvale is totally in there. There's like, I mean, the obvious one is Tournament Grounds, which is like
that's actually built for the knight. Deck anyway. That's a knight type will include.
But I actually weirdly chased down the Kaladesh basics for this deck just because, for whatever reason, the basics in Kaladesh have these like big, especially the plains, have like these sort of vast fantasy landscapes and castles and towns and stuff, and it sort of feels like a place that a knight would hang out.
More knighty.
Yeah. Weirdly, the Throne of Eldraine ones have like these amazing landscapes, but Throne of Eldraine is also like a very fantasy-oriented set, and I wanted the Sir Gwyn deck to feel more like it was rooted in kind of, you know, just like, like
old-fashioned knights.
Middle age? That's not the right word.
Yeah.
Middle...
No.
Yeah,
or... Well, like, you're not
medieval.
talking medieval.
God, not middle. Medieval times, you know, like that kind of look and aesthetic.
You even found like a disenchant that had like a knight's gauntlet on it.
Yeah,
like you're like,
that was a great find.
I need removal. There's no knight removal, but there's this one weird printing where there's a disenchant where there's a knight's gauntlet in it. I'm using that.
I own like 6 different copies of Disenchant because it's been printed so many times that there is a different vibe Disenchant for every possible thing. Like my goth girl aesthetic Electra themed deck, Electra's my partner, has a Disenchant that's like a hot girl in it, like just because why not?
It's actually Electra just in the art.
Yeah, it could be, honestly. I guess I hope we're like spreading the infectious joy of this, but the reason that we're endorsing building for flavor is that it's fun.
Yeah.
It's going to result obviously in a less powerful deck, but it's got a more flavorful experience that captures, the essence of a part of Magic's story or a plane of Magic's existence, or just like a theme of the fantasy that we see within Magic.
Or even like part of your personality. Like, I think this is something that like brewing around something that you enjoy doing in Commander. Like, we've had like people at our game store love this kind of like, I have big, powerful, stompy creatures vibe.
Yeah.
Build decks that like for example, Brian Stoutarm was a commander that player at our local game store was like, I want to build this commander because it throws big creatures. So all I'm going to do is play big, weird, dumb creatures, but throw them at you instead of playing with their synergies or anything like that. That's just like a fun way to go about it. And we've giggled more in this first half of this episode than most recent episodes when we're talking about CDH or power.
Yeah.
It's because that's what it does. It's fun. It makes you like really appreciate that this is more than just a game. There's philosophy behind it. There's story. There's lore. It's really wonderful.
And I think Commander as a format captures this so much better, or like it's such a better vessel for this than any other format because it's casual.
Yep.
So you don't have to have the most powerful deck to compete in a tournament or whatever, or play it at Friday Night Magic. You can just rock up with a Commander deck.
Sideline, if you lose a game of Commander, it doesn't matter.
No, straight up. But also, it's singleton. So like, this is the thing. You could build a deck like this for Modern or for Standard or something. It would be bad and you'd probably lose a lot. But also the thing that would happen is you'd kind of tell the same story through the cards every time. Commander being singleton means you can capture these kind of esoteric, like episodic stories within Magic and collectively tell a narrative. The laying out of the cards that you play in each deck, and this is also why I've talked about playing less tutors, like results in a different narrative that the game becomes around.
For sure. Like I can see a world where you play 5 games with your Seguin deck, but the hero of the story is different every time because there's a particular knight that did a particular thing that was really good in that particular pod. The next pod, completely different thing. Like you could have the hero this time be someone from Eldraine, and then the next time it's someone from the conspiracy block. Or
maybe it's Mirren Crusader who has protection from green,
and there's a mono green player. There's a mono green really player, relevant.
And Mirren Crusader is like, oh, I've been training for this.
I'm ready to battle Ayula and the bears.
Bears. I've killed so many of those. It's such a great way to capture this kind of feeling that Magic always brings, but it's like such a great avenue to channel that creativity down.
Yeah, for sure. Now, look, I'm going to ask you this question because you're the master of this. As someone that, like, generally just has a huge database of cards in his head, I can kind of find cards in my own memory.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of listeners out there, especially new players, would have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
There is a friggin' awesome website that we've probably never mentioned on this podcast before called Scryfall.
Scryfall.
Walt is the king of this. I want to know specifically, like, for example, for your Seguin deck, how did you find all of the cards with the artwork specifically and the flavor and that kind of stuff? Because, like, I know there's ways. How do you do it?
Well, it's interesting. The way I went about it was a very inefficient way, which was by just, like, looking through a lot of printings of cards and kind of just like scrolling mindlessly through Scryfall. I found way better ways of doing this now. So I am good at it. I've gotten a lot better since building that deck.
Yeah.
I want to shout out a couple of aspects that you can use on Scryfall. I'm going to talk about the keywords you can put in because I'm just a geek for keywords. But all of these you can use with the advanced search feature. You don't have to learn any syntax if you do it this way. You just type things into a box and combine them together, and it does the same end result. So if you'd rather do advanced search, just do that.
I think like a couple of months ago, I was really trying because I wanted to impress Walt, but I just still use advanced search.
It's totally serviceable. And I used it for like literal years before I started using syntax. But there's a couple of things you can do. So the first one I want to shout out is flavor text. So I've talked before about searching Oracle text. And this is great for finding cards that say landfall on them or have an ETB or something.
And that's O colon.
Yes, O colon, then the
draw.
thing you're searching for. Oh, yeah, exactly. It'll work for that. Flavor text, you type in FT or the word flavor, and then a word, and it will search specifically the flavor text of a card for any time that word appears in the flavor text.
That's insane. So if I wanted to build like a Chandra deck using the Chandra Origins card, I could just go FT Chandra and it will show me every Chandra card or every time Chandra was referenced in the flavor text of a card.
You could, and I'm going to, in a sec, I'll talk about another way you could search for Chandra, which is maybe works even better. But yes, that's one way you could search the flavor text, because sometimes Chandra might not be, on the card in some way, but she's mentioned, so that's what you would search for.
Sure.
Obviously, this is going to work better when you're combining it with a different kind of search. So if you're already searching for something with an enter the battlefield effect, and then you add the flavor text of Chandra, you're going to find things that have an ETB and Chandra. That's going to be a better way to find cards for your deck specifically.
It'll then probably pull up some elemental that enters the battlefield and does 4 damage, but the flavor text is like, Chandra's cat shat on this snake and killed it.
We all know the card.
I don't work in R&D.
We know which card James is talking about. You don't have to mention in the comments.
It was a big fiery poo.
Yeah.
That's the name of the card.
That's the name of the card.
Big fiery poo.
Big fiery poo. Is there an H on the end of poo?
Like Pooh Bear?
I don't know. I don't know why you sometimes use H and you sometimes don't. Listeners out there, why do you sometimes use H and you sometimes don't? That's what I want to learn from making this episode. That's the whole reason I made it.
Scryfall.
Scryfall. Searching flavor text. Obviously, it's going to work better when you combine it with something that you're already searching for your deck. I want to shout out another keyword here. Function.
I've heard of this one. You've mentioned this before.
So these are actually tags that people who use Scryfall have applied to a card, but they're very, very well done, and they appear very, very consistently.
I think there's a pretty big community that does this. Like,
absolutely.
A lot of the Scryfall people do it themselves.
As new sets come out, people are tagging the cards like this. So for instance, you can do function removal. And it will show you every card that has a function of destroying something, exiling something, doing a board wipe.
Bouncing
something.
Yep.
Anything that you would remotely consider removal, it will appear there. You can do function draw. This will do anything that draws a card.
Oh man, I've been using Oracle Draw for the longest time.
Will capture most of it, but sometimes misses, and this will never miss doing function draw. It's a really, really great one. So yeah, you could search for a card that draws you cards, for instance, by doing function draw. And let's say you were building that food deck, but you didn't only want cards that created food, because you could go Oracle food, for instance, that would do that. You wanted cards that had food in the art. And this is what I was talking about before with Chandra. There's another little bit of syntax you can do, which is art : thing.
No.
People have tagged whenever something appears in the frame of a card, but not anywhere else. So for instance, like Chandra, almost every card that has Chandra anywhere in the art, if you go art : Chandra, it will appear in that Scryfall search.
That's amazing.
The tags are so extensive.
I'm kind of terrified that this will get even more advanced, because you know how AI is now starting to be used to recognize images and like point out that, like, I sent Walt, this is side funny tangent, I sent Walt a screen recording from my phone the other day with a voiceover of a photo of a butterfly that I took on one of my plants in the garden.
Oh, this is cool.
And on my phone, this is a feature on all iPhones, by the way, it's just in the Photos app, you can like tap the butterfly and it will tell you what species the butterfly is, because it's analyzed the colors in the wings and the shape of it and everything, and it will bring up information about that butterfly, and that's all done by AI.
I said this to James. I said two things about this. One, I said, finally, a use for AI that doesn't take my job
and
as
doesn't
an artist.
Scare the shit out of me.
And I also said, this is the one and only time I've legitimately wanted an iPhone. As a wanker who always buys
anti-Apple products, essentially. It's just anti-Apple.
Built my own PC.
Don't start it like, I much prefer the Android. It's anti-Apple.
I'm an Apple hater. Yeah. I'll own that, 100%. No, it's very, very cool, and AI would make this stronger.
Unbelievable. But imagine if Scryfall did this.
Well, I don't know that Scryfall needs to do this, because do you want to hear just the tags that you can search for art? Because there's a list of them. I'm linking them in the show notes.
Sure.
Just for the letter A before AF. So every different iteration of thing you can search for in the art
that starts with A,
but only up to AF. So anything before that.
Go on.
We have AAA, Arakokra, Abaddon, Abandoned, Abbey, Abdel Adrian, Abduction, Abier Toral, Abier Toral Faction Symbol, Abian, Abeleth, Abishan, Abraham Van Helsing, Abs. That's really abs like the abs that you have in your chest. Abseiling, Absolute Territory, Abstract, Abstract Background, Abstract Elemental, Abuelo, Abzan House, Abzan Houses, Abzan
they're
Sybil,
actual magic things.
Academic Cap, Academy, Accident, Accordion, Ace. That's the character Ace from Doctor Who, by the way. Asarak, Acid Breath, Aclazots, Acne, Acorn, Cornelia, Acrobat, Acrylic Gauche, Acrylic Paint. Somehow,
acrylic paint?
Adamaro, Aiden.
What card has acrylic paint?
Adanto Location, Adaka, Adeline, Adeliz, Adeptus Custodes. I don't even know what that is. Adeptus Mechanicus. I don't know what that is either. Adeptus Mechanicus Symbol. Adeptus Ministrorum. Adeptus Sonorita.
This is just Latin now.
Adeptus Sororitas. Adrian Adanto of Luigio, whoever the fuck that is. Adriana Valore. Adrix. Aiden
Also
Oakenshield. Advisor. Adji, Agar, Aegis Fang. Aglos. Aerial Perspective. Aerial Perspective. Aerial View. Arona. Aeroplane. AC. Aether. Aetherborn Vampire. Aetherflux Reservoir. Aether Pipe. Aether Spire. And Ave.
Christ. What on earth was that?
Those are just the things that are tagged using the letter A before we get to AF.
Just for the friggin' artwork? What the hell? I actually moved back in my chair then. That was...
People are committed to tagging every card that comes out.
There are people with not a lot to do, clearly, on a Friday night. I'm so curious. If you are one of the people that help Scryfall tag these things...
Yeah, tell us how.
Tell me what you do for, your job or, what you do on the weekends, because that seems like an insane amount of time. That was just AE. That was all the way up to AE.
Yep. Crazy. But look, if you've ever wanted to build a deck that captures a particular flavor, you can do it. I want to tell you, if you want to build your Ave deck, there's some Ave cards out there for you.
Well, there's always that joke about someone building a hat typal deck where every artwork includes
100% you could build a hat typal deck.
Can you quickly jump on Scryfall and do
we're going to do art hat. And we're going to, to be
This is live
really
reaction,
clear,
by the way.
We will go for how many, only the cards legal in Commander.
Sure.
There are 2,273 cards where the illustration contains hat and it's legal in Commander.
Oh my god, the first one that comes up is Abandon the Post, and it's a flashback up to 2 target creatures can't block this turn. So that's great for combat tricks. It's got flashback. But yes, there is indeed a man wearing a hat. And then if I just sort this by EDH rec, it'll just bring me the best cards that are most played as well. But it will only show me the ones with people in hats.
Only people in hats. The thing it does really well as well is it will show you different printings of a card. So sometimes there might be 4 copies of Rhystic Study that don't have a hat in the art, but one that does. It will show you that printing of Rhystic Study. Very, very cool.
Ridiculous.
Obviously, as I said earlier when we were searching for flavor, you can combine this with other tags to find things for your deck.
Sure. So give us a few examples.
So I want to shout out, this is just for, I'm mostly flexing, a search that I could do if I was searching for cards for my Sir Gwyn deck.
Yep.
So I would do F:EDH, so only cards that are legal in the format EDH.
Sure.
CI, Commander Identity, RWB.
Mardu.
Yep, Mardu colors. I always chuck on a USD less than 4. I don't like expensive cards. Yep. Function, draw. So we're looking for card draw.
Sure.
And then we can do a bracketed thing here, and we can use the OR functionality. So if you put something in brackets and put ORs between them, it searches for a bunch of things with different variables.
That's something new I've been trying to figure out how to do. Thank you for teaching me that.
So our bracketed search to end this one off, to find the cards that fit the flavor of the Sir Gwyn deck, is going to be Art:*Knight, or Art:*Battle, or Art:*Sword, or Art:*Lance, or Art:*Formation.
Formation was one of them.
I don't know. I was just spitballing. I was like, what?
Well, there's a bunch of people standing in a line. They can draw cards.
Assemble the
Legion.
That would sort of have a knight feel to it, even though it doesn't have knights necessarily in the art. So this is going to give us every card that is legal in Commander, in our Commander's color identity, costs less than $4, can draw cards, and features a knight, battle, sword, lance, or formation in the art. That's a bloody amazing search for the vibe of my Commander commander deck.
and that's also doing stuff like, so if you were in Mardu and you wanted to draw cards, I would be throwing cards in, like, you know, if I was on EDH Rec, I'd be looking, Phyrexian Arena, that draws me an additional card each turn. Necropotence is a powerful card.
Yeah.
I'll put that. None of those fit the flavor of Knights, Battles, or anything like that.
It's funny you should say that, because I plugged in this search and then sorted by EDH Rec just to see what like the top cards were that fit the vibe.
Sure.
The like really old, I think it's the original printing of Phyrexian Arena is famously it's Urza and Mishra, I think, fighting in the Phyrexian Arena.
No.
There's a sword in the art because Mishra is about to strike Urza with it.
Oh, no way.
I wouldn't put this in the Knight deck. It's not quite flavorful enough.
That's insane.
But it found it.
Because my brain was like, I'm just thinking of the new one with Veraska and Jace.
Totally.
Or I'm thinking of the one with, I think it might be Mishra covered in Phyrexian oil.
Yeah.
That like really dark image one of
Yes.
Phyrexian Arena.
Yeah.
None of those fit the vibe. But
No.
if there's one with a dude holding a sword,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'll include this in the deck because specifically it's got a sword.
It's got a sword in there.
Yeah, nice.
It's like those I've like just touched on what you can do.
Scryfall is an amazing engine.
And
to be honest, that's why I asked you, because I'm not telling the listeners how to do that.
I've probably only scratched the surface. If you know of any other cool Scryfall searches, by the way, tell me. Like, there's a list of in the syntax. It gives you a guide.
There's like
to
a
the syntax.
guide on the website.
There's some stuff that doesn't appear there. I know that for sure. There's like weird niche things that I don't know how to do that you can do. So tell me if you know about those. If you don't want to learn all that about Scryfall, I do just want to mention, you can ask your friends.
Yeah.
Especially people who've been playing Magic for a long time. If you're just like, hey, what cards come to mind that have a sword in the art? Someone who's been playing Magic for 5, 6, 7 years, they'll have a bunch of cards to list there.
Yep. And I think it's like pretty good for new players to feel comfortable in asking these kind of questions when they want to build a deck. I want to stress that Commander players specifically, maybe not modern players, maybe not legacy players, I don't know because I don't really play those formats, but Commander players are the best at wanting to help you find weird niche includes for your deck.
Oh.
So, like, literally, our Discord might be a good one to shout out here.
100%.
Because our Discord has a channel in it called Deck Discussion, which is just basically throw up your Moxfield list, ask a general question, and people will just flood and give you ideas.
Yeah.
The other week, like a couple months ago now, I wanted cards that triggered on upkeep. And when you do a Scryfall search for things that say upkeep, God, you'll be there for years.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm just going to survey people of their favorite upkeep triggers.
Yeah. Poll the people.
Everyone, tell me what your favorite upkeep triggers are. And I found some wild cards. Like, there was some really insane includes for that deck. Like, there was a background called Tavern Brawler. At the beginning of
upkeep, you exile till you exile. You exile top card of your library, and then your commander gets like plus X, where X is the mana value of the thing.
I think it's plus X plus O, and then you can cast it for the turn. You can cast
it till the turn.
But because I had two commanders,
draw twice.
Yeah, I had two commanders.
So I would impulse. You can theoretically, if you had both of them out and Tavern Brawler, and you did the upkeep thing with Night
I would
Doctor,
exile
4 cards.
4 cards.
That's gas. 3 mana, draw 4 cards every turn.
And the other wild thing is K9. This is for my K9 and Ninth Doctor deck. I don't actually think I mentioned that, but K9 gives another legendary creature unblockable.
It's a win con.
I can use this card to knock someone out with commander damage.
Oh, that is gas.
It's insane. And I had no idea about it until someone in the Discord was like, why haven't you looked at this card?
Yeah.
I'm like, because I didn't know about it.
That's
this is amazing.
So cool. That's so cool. I guess I will say 100% the Discord's a great place to go, and like asking people is a great place to go. You need to be really clear if you're looking for flavor. If you just go like, hey guys, what do you think of this deck? The suggestions people naturally will make in the same way that EDH Rec will naturally have powerful cards on it.
Optimally correct.
Optimal. They'll go like, hey, have you thought about Damnation in your deck? Have you thought about Wrath of God? And it's like, yes, I have. But I also, you can be clear, I'm looking for a theme, you know? I'm looking for cards and be really specific. Like, when I'm looking for Knight Vorthos cards, if I was asking, I wouldn't be like, I want cards about knights. I'd be like, I want the feel of my deck to be chivalry and combat and armor and lances and swords. And that's like a
Imagine a TV show Merlin. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, straight up. Like, you know, picture things that would fit in that theme, and that's what I'm chasing. But yeah, I think the thing about asking people who are really established players, especially when you ask really narrow and specific questions, people take it as a challenge. Like,
yeah, oh my God, I will do that so often. Like, you'll come to me and say, oh, I'm building this really, like, for example, just recently, we were on Discord not long ago, and you were like, oh, I want to build Slime Against Humanity and build an ooze deck. And I was like, you're fucking on. Yeah. I spent the next, 20 minutes, 30 minutes just looking specifically for cards for Walt.
It was a collaborative effort. Yeah. We were, actively building the deck. I was building the deck on Moxfield and, doing most of the edits and, deciding whether cards would actually make it.
And I was spamming that man with Scryfall links.
A lot of them were making the cut, for sure. It's and look, to be completely honest, when people post in the deck discussions channel, I'm a busy guy. I don't often chime in. When someone has a really narrow and weird deck, I'm like, I'll find something.
Sure.
I take it as a challenge.
I'll pause writing this podcast episode or making this content.
Yep.
I'll do this.
This is a worthy challenge for my intellect. I think we've given plenty of guidelines for flavor. It's also been 44 minutes already.
Is it really? Wow. Okay.
We're excited about this.
Longer than I thought for this.
I don't know if you can tell.
At the time at all.
I think we'd better take a thrifty interlude.
Yeah, short little break. Let's make it flavorful. Let's make this episode of Thrifty Interlude be thrifty, so it'll taste like pennies.
This card will taste like pennies. You just wait. So we've got lots left to cover, including fun being an important part. Before that, we're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card. And as is tradition, I will be performing a monologue. James, would you like to read the card that the cowled merchant will be presenting us with this week?
Heck yeah, because it's definitely not Walt. It's Armadillo Cloak. For 1 green and a white, you get an enchantment aura that says Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. And whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life.
There once was a man in a cloak. Except the man was a woman, and the cloak was the scales of an armoured marsupial. Not much of a cloak, but who am I to judge? Wait, who am I? Oh, right. Don't you want to have this cloak for yourself? Will you be protected? Maybe. Will it stay on your body? Unclear. Will you look cool? Probably not. Unless you have some armadillo friends. Actually, it's probably not cool to wear your friend's uncle's skin, though in some circles, I'm sure that's a compliment. I don't know where those circles are, but you could be your own circle if you roll into a ball. Get budgeted.
I love the reference to the original Haunted Cloak Thrifty Thursdays include.
I think you were maybe the only person who knows the Thrifty Thursdays lore well
big enough of a fan
to recognize those first lines as what they were. But yes, this is a good example, I think, of the kind of card that we're about to look at.
Yeah.
But I'll first just say, if you enjoyed that, you can obviously go check more of those out in the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server, Thrifty Thursdays channel. They're released every week, blah, 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 blah. But the next category of card that they wanted us to look at was fun.
Yeah, that was look, flavor was fun to talk about.
It was
clearly.
Indeed. Yeah.
But yeah, fun is like a whole thing in of itself. And obviously, I think straight out the box fun is subjective.
Yeah.
That is really important to note here. One idea is someone's idea of fun could be another idea of torture to someone else.
Yeah, straight up.
We're not kink shaming. That's something we're not trying to do. Get your kicks where you get your kicks. But here's what we advise to have fun for.
Yeah. And look, I think that every single thing that we're about to list, if someone in your play group is just I don't think this is very fun, just throw it out the window. Don't commit to doing things that you think are oh my God, this is so fun and funny. And someone else is this is making me miserable. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking about the fun of the table here. I'm going to say that this section is going to have to be very different from before because I'm not aware of a way to search Scryfall for fun cards. There's a funny tag.
I know that there's a funny tag because some cards... Oh my man, the Wizards R&D enjoy running puns in their cards.
Oh yeah,
Slime Against Humanity.
Yeah,
hilarious. Well done, bravo.
Love it so much. But yes, it is very hard to know what you would search for if you were looking for fun.
I guess you could if you have an idea of a mechanic that's fun, you could search that mechanic.
100%. But I guess. Maybe that should be our goal, is to show you the mechanics, and then you can go and search for your own ones that have that thing happening. But
yeah, sure.
Remember, our goal here is also to move away from power. So going towards fun, away from power. So I think the sort of line that I'm giving here is we're thinking about things that are not powerful that are also fun.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I feel often a lot of people's opinion of what is fun in Magic is doing a powerful thing.
Totally fair.
When I resolve resolve a Sublime Epiphany for 2 blue mana because Mind Splice Apparatus has 4 oil counters on it. That feels awesome.
It's very cool.
But it is incredibly powerful, and Sublime Epiphany appears on EDH rec pages. So what we're trying to do here, and like, look, you can still have fun cards that cards we're about to explain, for example, but you can and they can still be powerful, but you'll find more of them if you steer away from the typical places where you look for power. That's what we're trying to
do. I guess the cards that look that are fun, it's not to say they're an isolated group from the cards that are powerful, but they're just usually sitting towards the end of the lower end of the power level scale.
And it's also where you look for them as well,
I think so.
Yeah. You will... An easy place to go find powerful cards, CEDH database, EDH rec, go find them there.
Yep.
But we're going to be looking in other places for this, and we'll give you a couple of examples on how to find them. So
yeah, I think the first category I want to talk about here is something that's just like fun in terms of the way the game unfolds. Cards that interact with your opponents, especially like in interesting ways. So Armadillo Cloak is what I was thinking of here, which is
you can enchant someone else's creature.
Yep.
When I read the card before we did the interlude, I specifically read Armadillo Cloak of whenever this creature deals damage, you gain that much life. A lot of the time, you'll read enchantment auras that just say enchanted creature has lifelink.
There is a difference, which is that lifelink always refers to the controller of the creature. So if I have a creature and James gives it lifelink, when that deals damage, I gain all that life because the creature has lifelink and the lifelink refers to that player.
Or, for example, if Walt has a creature with lifelink already and I gain control of it, when I deal damage with that creature, I'll gain the life because the creature I control has lifelink.
Yes. However, Armadillo Cloak just says whenever the enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. So there's a...
I can now see why you were so excited to talk about this card. I gotcha.
So there's an obvious downside here, which is that this is a trigger that goes on the stack. So this is why lifelink doesn't work like this. It's because it would mean that someone could like stifle the effect, or someone could like respond and bolt you, even though you've
kill you
before
damage. You've gained the life.
Yeah. So that's the downside.
Lifelink, just for a rules thing here, lifelink works very differently to this because lifelink happens simultaneously with damage because now damage does not go on the stack.
It's a static effect. Is that right? Lifelink, or is it like a replacement effect?
It's not a replacement effect. It's known as a static ability.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. But yes, Armadillo Cloak is a trigger, but also it just says when the enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. I can put this on James's creature.
Like, let's say, for example, I've got a massive 12/12 Galta dinosaur that's threatening to kill Walt.
Yeah, I can put the Armadillo Cloak on there. It will buff it by 2 and give it double trample in this case.
Trample.
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 It's a weird episode. But when it deals damage, I will gain that much life because I control the aura that says the line of text on it. So, yes, there's some really cool things that can happen here where you can put this on someone else's creature, kind of blank the damage that it would deal to you. Very cool. Kind of.
If the creature would deal damage and you would die... You die.
You'll just die.
You die.
Yeah, the trigger's on the stack.
If you still have life left after that creature's dealt damage, you'll gain all that life, which is great.
Yeah, it's also the cool thing that you can do here is you can chuck this on someone else's creature and be like, hey, I know you want to get through damage over here.
I'll give you trample.
I'll give you +2/+2 and trample, and then be like, don't read the rest of the card.
Just ignore that bit. Don't worry. I'll tell you what, there's a cycle of cards that I think work perfectly for this. The vow cycle. Like the vow of duty, vow of promise, I think there's one.
That sounds right.
Vow of vengeance, I think is
flight
vow
is the
of
one that
flight.
gets flying.
Yep.
So all of these give +2/+2 to the creature, a keyword, so flying or vigilance or trample or whatever, and they say they can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. You being the player who casts the aura and controls the aura. So
these ones aren't goaded though, because there's another cycle that's like impetus cycle. They're the shiny impetus. Psychic impetus, I think, is the one that whenever it attacks, the controller of the creature loses to, you gain to.
And it's goaded specifically. But this one just says it can't attack you. So I can put a vow of duty on James's creature. He doesn't have to attack with it, but if he does, it can't come at me. And that's just like a protection thing. I like them a lot for this, like affecting your opponents and the things that they do, giving a buff.
Well, you played one in the pre-con game with our Murders of Markov Manor stream.
Yeah.
You ended up getting a Vow of Duty on like a massive beta on I think it was Will's board.
Yeah.
And I just died to this huge beta because Walt said, can't come at me.
I mean, it was doubly good because that deck like also goads. So it was like, hey, Will,
it was a good include.
Can't come at me. The Vow cycle is a really great example of this.
I think the Impetus cycle is also another good one to look at.
Still goading. Yep. Goading is also a good way of affecting the board. I guess I would say goading, because we're talking about like affecting your opponents, goad doesn't give the player who's goaded very much, whereas the vows kind of give people more options, I would say. I still like the Impetus a lot.
Yep.
Similar kind of thing of like talking about combat and things people gain from combat. Coveted Jewel.
I love this card.
I want to shout out, this is a 6-mana artifact. When it ETBs, you draw 3 cards. It taps for 3 mana. So this is already really great.
Yeah.
When a player...
Of any color as well, by the way.
Yes, it does. When a player attacks with a creature and isn't blocked, specifically, they gain control of Coveted Jewel and untap it. And they draw 3 cards.
And when they gain control of it, they draw 3 cards. Yeah.
Super sick. And just like it changes the way the game plays in the same way the Monarch does, but much like to a much higher degree.
Yeah, on a much more immediate degree, I would say. I think the reason why I really like including cards like this is there's something I've been finding frustrating recently, and it's about like games not ending. We talk about game length a lot.
Yeah.
This brings games to a close, and I love cards that just interact with the board in this like way of like, it's not ending the game because I'm going off with a combo or I'm instantly winning the game right here, right now.
Yeah.
It's going off in this way of like, right, I'll get a boost of mana and a boost of card draw.
Yeah.
And if you guys engage with this trying to end the game idea that I'm putting down, we'll end the game. And if you get Coveted Jewel, you'll be burst a little bit, then your opponent will be burst. It's a fun way of interacting, for sure.
It results in a faster game, I think, definitely. And I'm with you. I think faster is usually better in casual games, especially in some of the games we've been playing in recently. That's very much lower power level. And certainly pre-con games are like this. Yeah, it helps.
Well, our pre-con stream was what, like 3 hours long?
Yeah, it was long. It helps to have some accelerants, I think, to increase the pace of the game. And I think Coveted Jewel is a really great example of this. I also think like interacting with your opponents can happen in the form of giving your opponents choices. I'm talking specifically about cards that vote here. There's obviously ways to abuse it. Most of the like voting decks, like where the commander does this,
for example,
it always just results in like, I get everything. You know? Like if you vote the way I vote, like there's the Simic one that's like, if you vote the way I vote, I get this. And if you vote the way I don't like, I get this other thing. It's like, okay, so voting is always good for you.
But including them in decks where it's not about the voting, it's just about including this fun mechanic where it interacts with your opponents get a choice. I actually really enjoyed the Doctor Who Precon Masters of Evil.
Oh yeah.
That
Villainous Choice.
Choice. Yeah. These cards were really interesting. I mean, they're always going to benefit you, but it was a really cool way to engage in this like fun conversation at the table of like, oh, what should we choose as a team? Even cards like the Tempt cycle, like Tempt with Discovery and all these kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just those little mini game conversations that your opponents have to have of like, oh, we really shouldn't take this tempting offer of getting lands to our battlefield, should we? But I kind of want to do it. And it's like this fun back and forth. I really enjoy those conversations.
I think it's a really great in for politicking. Like it basically forces politics to happen.
I mean,
in
the
a really
flavor of the cards, you're voting.
Yeah.
Like you are actually voting. It couldn't be more on the nose. This is a political conversation.
Yeah, 100%. I want to shout out my favorite recent example of this, which is Prisoner's Dilemma.
This card literally is so fun.
Creates the philosophical construct of the Prisoner's Dilemma. So
if you're not familiar, we should probably run through it, right?
So the Prisoner's Dilemma, I'm not like intimately familiar with, but it basically like philosophically puts you in a position of like, either collectively everyone agrees to do good and will get out of it, or someone can betray us and they're given that power.
So if everyone, the idea is that if both parties, so two people are given a choice, if both parties choose to be good to each other, then they both benefit pretty well.
Yes.
If both parties decide to betray each other, both of them lose.
Yes.
If one party decides to betray the other party and the other party is going to be good to, so like say party A is good and party
I'm being good.
Yeah.
James is choosing to be bad. James gets all the benefits.
I get all the reward.
And I get all the suffering. So the way this played out in a Magic card is Prisoner's Dilemma, which puts your opponents, you cast that, it's a 5-minute sorcery, puts your opponents into this. I won't read the card because it's got too much text on it, but the gist of it is you either choose, what are the names of the choices?
Snitch or silence.
Silence or snitch. That sounds right. So if everyone chooses silence, a sort of moderate thing happens.
And it's damage to your opponents.
It's damage that happens. If everyone chooses snitch, a very bad thing happens. But if some people choose silence and some people choose snitch, the snitch people don't have anything happen to them, and the silence people take a bunch more damage. I think it's 12.
I think it's 12. I
think it's 4, then 8, then 12. The 3 tiers.
The 3 levels, yeah. And so when you cast this card, your opponents will naturally go, oh, we should all choose silence, right?
Yeah,
Let's
we're all
choose
choosing silence.
Let's choose silence. All right, we'll all choose silence. All right, everyone, reveal. 3, 2, 1, reveal. James, why the fuck did you snitch?
Yeah.
That's essentially how it will play out.
The snitch gets out of it completely, and the silence people are taking 8. And then, yes, if everyone snitches, everyone takes 12.
And you can see why it's called the Prisoner's Dilemma.
Yeah, it puts you in the Prisoner's Dilemma.
Yeah, it literally puts you in a position where 2 cops have arrested you. One cop takes you to one interview room. The other cop takes your buddy to another room, and they give you this ultimatum. It's a great design of a Magic card.
This is why I will never agree with people who are like, R&D have no idea what they're doing and they're not in touch with regular players. It's
this is amazing.
No, people are still... There are people within the Commander design group who know what good games are comprised of, and they're actively searching for it, and they hit often with those cards.
Like Wheel of Misfortune is about as complicated as this card, but my God, it's so fun to resolve.
Yeah, once you understand how it works, and it's just like, how risky do I want this to be, it's a fun card.
And including it in decks like Obosh.
You always win. Prisoner's Dilemma, also great in Obosh, because it also has an odd mana value.
Oh, yeah.
The last card I want to shout out here, this is another 50 Thursdays card, actually. Does it interact with your opponents? Guided Passage is such a weird card.
Well, the first line of text on the card is, reveal your library.
It only gets better from there. So it's blue, green, red, so it costs Teamer colors. You reveal your library. An opponent chooses from among your library a land card, a non-land, non-creature card, and a creature card.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, something like that.
Non-land, non-creature. That's like an enchantment or an artifact or something like that.
It's
or
a land,
sorcery.
A creature, and then something that's not a land or a creature, basically, is the gist of it. But yeah, I've used this specifically to be like, hey, we need a board wipe. Here's Guided Passage, find us a board wipe. And it's like, no one's going to say no to that, but then it's like, what kind of deal can we strike about those other 2 cards that you choose for me, you know?
We've been in many games together where you've cast Guided Passage and targeted me because you know that I'll give you the thing that the table needs, whether it's like the answer or the way to stop the person from winning on their next turn. But it's always a great time of us being like, okay, well, what else do you want? Okay, we need that board wipe, but what creature do you want? Whatever creature I get never swings at me. How about that? And it's like this fun little side game. It's like this side game of Magic.
It opens up the door to more politicking happening later. You know, it can be, there's a back and forth that's implied there of like, okay, I'll get you that creature. Yeah, if it doesn't swing at me. And then it's like, okay, it won't swing at you if you don't target it with this. You know, like there's like kind of levels and layers.
Increasing politics is so much fun. And I think that, interacting with your opponents is definitely the key to get that.
Absolutely. I think another way we can move away from power and towards fun is like, this is going to sound obvious, but the cards that are powerful usually do things consistently. Right? Like,
I see where you're going with this. I like this.
Rhystic Study, obviously people can pay the 1, but Rhystic Study never goes like, flip a coin.
Yeah, you're talking about randomness. Okay.
There's so much potential for fun and for great stories when things are random. Like, I'll talk about one card that we see all the time that you probably don't need any more incentive to play already. Chaos Warp.
Great card.
How many great stories have come out of the card Chaos Warp? You know, like, I hit the Omniscience and then he flipped Ulamog the Infinite Gaia.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now I'm getting attacked and my library's getting exiled. Like, you know, we've seen it before where we've done the Chaos Warp thing. We've Chaos Warped something back into the library.
Yep.
They've shuffled it. We've even cut the deck and they've revealed the same creature.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that was a 3 mana, do nothing. Like
a 3 mana, target player shuffles their library. There's just so much potential there, and I think even with like removal, you can look to cards. Well, Chaos Warp obviously is removal, but like board wipes.
Oh, can I shout out Boom Pile in one of your
love
decks?
Boom Pile.
This is in your Itch to Keek deck,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I like it. It's like, it doesn't need any reason to be in a deck already, but it sacrifices as an artifact. It's an artifact that can be recurred.
Yep.
So in an artifact deck, it's more fun. But also, it's generic mana. So if you're in green, I have played Boom Pile in decks that are just mono green before. Basically, you tap it, you flip a coin, and if you win the flip, you destroy all non-land permanents.
It's hilarious. And it's genuinely one of those moments where Walt will like cast Boom Pile, everyone will go, whoa, you're doing that now? He's like, nah. But if we need it, we'll go 50-50 on it. Yeah.
I think arguably even more fun, sadly not as cheap, and sadly more color restrictive. Last One Standing.
This is the one in red and black one?
So you have to be in Rakdos or Rakdos Plus, but you choose a creature at random and destroy the rest.
The way this usually plays out is you basically assign every creature a number.
Yep.
And
Usually
then,
you can do it on a D20, you know.
But if there's I've had it before where we've played token decks, man, and it's been like, all right, we have to, there are 30 soldiers, so those soldiers will be 1 through 30.
Yeah.
These creatures will be this, and then we put it into
where's
like
my D100 at?
Well, I think the way we did it, someone resolved, I'm not sure if you were in the game, but we just went on to Google RNG and just went 1 to 250 or something. And it was like, I think what survived in the end was someone's commander, like wildly.
God,
and it's like
what are the
chances of that are insane.
But again, the story potential that comes out of that from a fun perspective is just so high. I think I would put this one slightly lower, but still has the potential because of the randomness. Atali is pretty funny.
I mean, both Atalis now.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
Other Atali
true.
kind of cascades from your opponent's libraries.
Yep.
I had a game the other day. Ironically, Atali famously flips cards off the top. I was playing my Vevictus Asmati deck, and I blew up some permanents on people's boards.
Nice.
Fletcher flipped an Atali Primal Storm off the top, and we were like, that's pretty funny. To flip the top deck card off the top.
Yeah, flip the card that's going to flip more cards.
Next player in turn order flips Atali off the top.
No way. Oh my God.
What are the odds that we hit 2 Atalis off the top?
We could do the math. Let's
It's
not,
low.
though.
It's a low chance.
I really like Atali, but I think that it has to... Atali's one of those includes that usually pops up in decks that synergize with it. Like, for example, big spell decks love Atali.
Big spell decks love it.
Things like cards cast from exile decks love Atali because it casts from exile.
I always forget the name of the Rakdos commander that everyone plays. Prosper Tomebound does it.
Yes, great include in the Prosper deck.
Slightly newer one, kind of old now, but there's that Gruul card that you make wolves when you cast cards from exile.
Oh yeah, I
forget what it's called.
Everyone was super hyped on that card, and I've not seen it
I've
really
not
be
seen
played.
It's cool.
It was from Midnight Hunt?
I think it's Midnight Hunt 'cause it makes wolves. Yeah. It's either that or Baldur's Gate. I can't remember. Anyway, very cool card as well. Yeah, Atali's better in there. I do want to add the big caveat to our recommendation to play random cards here, which is Chaos.
Yeah, this is like a different level to random. What we're recommending is cards that like still do a thing in the game and like, or might do a thing really well, or might do it subpar like Boom Pile, or might do nothing at all like Boom Pile. Yeah. But I think what you're trying to get at here is like Chaos decks are different breeds of decks. Decks that are designed to be pure chaos or make it very difficult to play the game of Magic.
100%. Like, I've spoken before about how I don't like combos in Commander, specifically because I feel like they invalidate the rest of the game that's happened.
I think I love chaos decks less.
Yeah, well,
much less.
I think it's the same reason though, right? Like chaos, like Possibility Storm, for instance.
Oh yeah.
The enchantment, when you cast a spell, you basically exile cards on top of your library until you exile a card of the same type. So an instant exile, so you hit an instant. Sorcery does it for sorcery, etc. You literally have turned all the cards that you see and look at and want to cast, and you said, what if they weren't that?
You've basically turned your deck into a slot machine.
It's a random number generator.
Let's just run the slot machine 10 times, see who wins.
And in the same way, like Thieves Auction and Warp World, anytime anyone casts one of these spells, I'm like, please never do this again.
weren't you in a game with Thieves Auction Resolved the other week?
I was, when we were at CanCon.
Yeah.
Someone cast it, and like, look, I think because I'd never seen it before. I'd never had been in a game with it. This is your first
Thieves Auction experience.
I've watched it a lot of times and been like, this doesn't look like fun, and heard a lot of people say it's not fun and been like, that sounds about right. But Thieves Auction I've never played in, and yeah, I had it resolved, and it was just like, it literally straight up said, let's pause the real game we're playing and play this fake game for a little while.
Yeah.
And also, It gets to a point, like, people steal, like, someone had a heuristic study. And it was like, okay, obviously someone's going to steal
That's going to go
that.
hot. That's going to go first.
But it gets to a point, like, you get about 5, 6, 7 cards in.
We should probably explain how Thieves Auction works first.
So basically, all the permanents on the battlefield go into the middle.
Yep.
And then in turn order, or maybe it's reverse turn order or whatever, people grab a permanent that they want until every permanent has been chosen. Yep. So straight up, you just pick something, that's yours. Pick something, that's yours, and then players gain control of all those things. It straight up just paused the game and made this meaningless mini game. And yeah, once 5 or 6 cards had been chosen, like the obvious best cards on the board, like there was like a Warstorm Surge, and there was a Heuristic
Fiery
Study
Emancipation or something like that.
Things that are obviously great in every deck. People are like, I'm going to grab that.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where it's like, okay, there's a player playing elves. I don't really care about, like, Fintorn elves.
Or Lizalana Huntmaster.
Yeah.
I'm not casting an elf in my Izzet deck.
I'm playing my landfall deck. I think I'd rather have my thing that triggers from landfall than I'd rather have this elf.
So you end up, after grabbing all those really high-value permanents...
It just becomes like nothing. Like
everyone
nothing
take back
happened.
what you originally had.
And the player who was in the lead still won the game. It just paused the game, the real game we were playing. Everything shuffled around a bit, and then the game continued and the same player won. It was like, what was the point of this?
Look, I think there's some, like, clear distinctions to make here, because we were referencing the fact that there, you know, when you engage in politics, there's, like, this fun little mini-game that happens.
Yes.
Cards like Thieves Auction and, like, Warp World... These cards don't just make a short little mini game. They take 10, 15 minutes
to resolve. They become the game, right?
Yeah, and it becomes this whole new thing. And like, yeah, Possibility Storm's another one. I think the Chaos deck archetype, which I really hope the Space Commanders never get us to do an archetype build on, is just one of those builds that, like, if your play group is happy to play against it and you guys are having fun, that's great.
Yeah.
Just be very wary of it, and you really have to be clear in that pre-game discussion, that Rule Zero conversation, to make sure that people know you are going to basically make the game a roulette wheel. Like,
yeah, it's straight up a different game. It's kind of not dissimilar to sitting down and being like, hey, let's play Commander. I want to play Plane Chase Commander. And it's like, okay, totally fair. That's a way to play, but it's different than Commander.
Correct.
And I'm not going to go ahead and say like Chaos games are a different format. They're obviously not. But it kind of is a similar effect it's having on the game to be like, okay, rather than regular Commander, we're going to play Commander with some RNG, like a lot more RNG in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you need to be really clear with people, because some people are going to be like, I like my cards to do what they do, Yugi.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people like their cards to do what they do, Yugi. I think that's the whole reason why they put it in their deck in the first place.
I actually put this card in because I wanted it to be cast and resolved.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I know, but that's what I was aiming for.
Well, look,
anyway.
I don't want to hark on
I don't want to
about,
rag about
like, because if you enjoy it, you play it. It's great. And if your play group really enjoy it, amazing.
And
if
look,
you want to play it with strangers,
it didn't kill my enjoyment of that game to play Thieves Auction. I'm not like...
If anything, I remember you saying it was a lot less bad than you thought it was.
100%. It was not as bad as I thought, but like, be aware that's what you're doing and, you know, don't aim for it, maybe. I think another category of card that kind of fits into this same thing of like moving away from power towards fun, and it's cards I've specifically been like maybe cut from your decks before. High ceiling, low floor cards.
You have specifically said cut these cards.
I think I've like, maybe there was a whole episode. I can't think exactly what it was, but I think it was like, play more consistent cards. High ceiling, low floor cards, though, have in the same way that politics cards and randomness cards add this element of like fun and like what's going to happen.
This adds an element of, oh my god, this could be a absolute blowout.
Yeah.
Or nothing in my deck.
Yes.
Like, when, especially in the deck building process, when you find cards that have this incredibly high, a lot of people refer it to it as Magical Christmas Land.
Yeah.
That's like the common way to refer to these cards. Magical Christmas Land is a very exciting place to go.
100%.
You'll meet Santa, you'll meet elves, you'll get candy canes and presents.
Yes.
But the floor of Magical Christmas Land is going there in like summer and like the reindeer are just like regular deer
and they're sleeping under a tree. Santa's sunburnt and he's rubbing aloe vera on his back,
and also like the snow is melted, there's just puddles
and lots of puddles and slush,
and the elves are like kind of like just waiting for their next paid job. They're like really
drunk.
struggling. They're like they've started drinking because they're not getting work.
They're drinking hard. It's a bad time of year.
Mrs. Claus is like, you know, seeing other people.
The economy is on a downturn.
Yeah. North Pole's really fucked up in
Rent's
summer.
expensive.
That's a horrible image. So you get what I'm saying.
So the lesson that we want to bring from this is don't visit the North Pole in summer. High ceiling, low floor cards.
You get what I'm saying, though,
I totally
right?
get what you're saying. I have talked about this as a few times as how much I love it. Everything comes to dust from the Doctor Who Commander decks.
So cool. The art on it is unbelievable.
As big Whovians, me and James love this so much.
And you're like a Rose Tyler
big
era
Rose Tyler fan. That's like my time. Everything comes to dust. It's a 10 mana sorcery. Has Convoke. It exiles all artifacts, enchantments, and creatures that didn't share a type with a creature that convoked a spell. So obviously, downside, like low floor, it's a 10 mana board wipe. Yes, it has Convoke.
Very low floor.
Very low floor.
If you top deck this and you've got no creatures on board and you need a board wipe, you are going to feel so sad casting this spell.
You could have 9 mana and be like, I can't board wipe. How often does that happen? Obviously, more low floor stuff. If you have a creature type that shares something with a lot of the board, like just humans. If you're in a humans deck, I play this in my humans deck.
Yep.
Sometimes you play against decks like that have lots of wizards in them or are doing spellslinger things,
and they just align with yours.
There's just lots of humans in those decks, and sometimes it's like, oh, cool, I get rid of everything except all the things that matter.
But the magical Christmas land of this card,
exactly
on Christmas Day when you unwrap this and you've got a board of 10 token humans and no one else is playing humans, everyone else has got beasts and stuff, and you're like, well, I'll go to combat and vigilance swing out at you, and then I'm going to tap everything and not spend a single drop of mana on this spell. Boom goes the dynamite.
Exile everything that's not mine. It can be.
What
in
a
some
wonderful
cases.
world.
And like, people don't feel bad losing to this because it's like, you got there, son. You got there.
You dreamt, you had a dream. Did you ever have a dream where you thought you
wanted,
you could, and you would, you could do anything?
Yeah, that's what happens when you do that.
Everything comes to dust is that kid.
It is. I want to shout out a card that you used to play back in our like super like battle cruiser, COVID 2020 games.
3 hour long.
Yep. Nascent Metamorph.
Oh, Nascent Metamorph. This card is wild.
So fun.
I used to run this in my Euroko deck because
no reason.
No reason other than it kind of wanted to attack. So what it is, a 1 and a blue for a 1/1. I think it's a salamander.
It could be a newt. I'm gonna look it up.
Might be. I think it might be a salamander. Anyway, when it attacks, you will target an opponent, so that you have to target the opponent, and they reveal cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. Nascent Metamorph becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn.
Yep, so it's wild.
Is it a salamander?
It's a shapeshifter.
It's a shapeshifter.
It looks
okay,
exactly like a salamander, to be fair.
Like
if you look at the art for this card.
Like the little newt thing.
Yeah. But basically, the player doesn't get the creature. It just gets shuffled back onto the bottom of their library.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't get anything.
You didn't steal anything from them.
Except that you copied a good creature, maybe.
See, what my magical Christmas land with this card with Euroko was that if I just target, because usually there's a player at the table that's playing big creatures.
Yeah.
I'll target the player going big creatures, and then if they block it, it's great because I got the big creature.
Yep.
If they don't block it, fabulous. I'll ninjutsu that massive creature away and put a ninja in. The other wild thing is Nascent Metamorph does this on block as well.
Yeah, it can weirdly be a blowout of a block. You know, sometimes
kind
you
of nuts.
Hit something with reach and lifelink as a blocker.
So you just target that angel player and be like, yours, please. Yeah. I'll become Avacyn. Thanks for that.
Avacyn, Angel of Hope till end of turn. Seems good.
It is a wild card. And every time I've seen it in other people's decks, I'm like, I love this card so much.
In a similar vein, when I was most recently revisiting my Kaza Wizards deck, I was trying to cut down on the sort of Comet Storm style, big burn, obvious win cards, and started to put in this could win if I copied it enough times. Elminster's Simulacrum is a 6 mana instant. It's 4 blue, and I think it's
4 blue, so 6 mana.
Blue,
that's intense.
And you just straight up make a token copy of a creature that an opponent controls.
Oh, is it so you just...
For each opponent. For each opponent, you create a token that's a copy of up to one target creature that player controls.
So if you copy this once, you create six tokens.
2 from each player.
Copy it twice, you make 9.
Yeah.
Copy it. Oh my lord, that's an exponential blowout.
And it's an instant. And Kaza reduces. Instant? It's an instant, and Kaza reduces the cost. So you just leave up 2 blue and Kaza, and then before someone's turn, you're like, cool, I'm gonna copy.
What set is this from?
All your creatures. It's Baldur's Gate.
Man, that's
Still slept on that set.
We gave it away as a booster box giveaway.
And we regret it.
I really wish we kept that box.
I think that we could have cracked some really fun stuff. But in a similar way to Nascent Metamorph, like, you can't feel bad about this.
No.
Like, you
it's
did
random.
this.
It's a bit of like it could be good, could be bad.
Yep, exactly. And like, yes, on an empty board, like talking about low floors, nothing. I have this 6-mana instant that does nothing.
Yeah. Magical Christmas Land, though.
Yep,
that Nascent Metamorph is a Gulter.
It's true.
A 2-mana Gulter. Well, usually Gulter's 2 mana anyway, but it's blue Gulter.
Anything's possible in Magical Christmas Land. I want to shout out another thing you're really good at.
I'm doing really good things this episode. Thanks, Walt. Really appreciate that.
I had my Scryfall moment. I
yeah,
feel like it's only
give
fair.
the second half of this episode to me. I'll take it.
My last tip here is mine your chaff.
I am really good at this,
You're
actually.
really good at mining your chaff. You have built entire decks, and you've spoken about this on the podcast, out of your chaff. So obviously the appeal here, like we're talking about, we're moving away from power because we can't go out and buy the specific cards that we know will be great in the deck.
I mean, buying singles will, like, inevitably be you looking for cards that are powerful. I think that's the natural thing. But, like, when you go to build a deck and you build most of it, and this is the way I do it, like, if I want to build a generally lower-powered, funner deck, more fun deck. Yeah. There's good grammar.
Nice.
I will generally go through my chaff first, find cards that just kind of synergize with the commander in a weird way. Might be, again, objectively worse include, but I'll just say, right, that's my version of this effect in this deck. Yeah. Because I've got it. And also, this saves money as well. This is also, I know Walt does a lot of budget picks, but I have saved so much money on just having the cards in my collection already.
It's true. I think especially people who already like are cracking lots of boxes and have that like encyclopedia of cards. Like, you have access to so many cards, and like, it's an obvious thing here. The reason I build on a budget, part of it is that limitation breeds creativity. And in the same way, building from within the cards you own is exactly the same thing. You're going like, yes, the limitation is not budget, and you might just like have a sort of Hearth and Home or a sort of Feast and Famine or whatever.
Well, I mean, when I built my Ukima and Khazar deck, I had a Nim's Death Mantle in my collection, and I was like, wow, this is really good with Ukima, because when it dies, you pay 4, return Ukima, attach the equipment that buffs it. It's a zombie. Who cares about that? But like, this is synergy. I just slapped that in my deck.
But then equally, there's a Bone Splitter in that deck. It's an equipment that gives +2/+0. That's the end of the card.
It equips for 1.
It's a pauper card. Like, it's a good card. I'm not going to deny it. But like, if you were going out and building an Ukima deck, I don't think you'd be like, man, gotta find some room in my budget for Bone Splitter.
I also run stuff like, what's Bone Split? There's like a cycle of really low, common, terrible equipment.
Oh, you got Volshock Morningstar?
Volshock Morningstar was the one I was trying to think of.
It's also my old copy of Volshock Morningstar, which I love to see. I think this one just gives +3/+3 from memory.
I actually think it's +3/+0. I actually don't even think it's that good.
Wow.
I think it's like a 2-drop that equips for 2 that gives +3/+0.
But like, I hope you get what it was saying in that, like, there is like fun and like, we can chat back to flavor again here. You will find cards going through your chaff that even if you're a Scryfall master like me, they just wouldn't jump out at you the same way. Like, when you're actively looking through the physical cards in your hand. For
something for a specific deck you have in mind.
That's the way to do it. Don't just like go mindlessly through chaff. Be like, okay, I'm building Gandalf the White. Let me look at every artifact I own, and you'll see stuff and be like, man, I would never have searched for this in Scryfall. But now that I see it, I'm like Chromatic Star.
It's just good.
When it put into a graveyard, draw a card that's going to double from Gandalf
the White's trigger.
Costs 1, adds a mana. Like, it's basically a ritual that draws a card.
So good.
So cool.
I think that the key to doing this is going in with the mindset of looking for a particular commander that you're building. I think if you just go mindlessly, you'll just be staring at cards. So go in trying to find a specific thing that your deck does or wants to do, and just dive around for a bit, and also go through your friends' stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
I've done it before where I've like rocked up at Walt's place, and Walt's got his like pile of chaff on his desk, and I flick through it and go, oh, Outlaw's Merriment. Do you mind if I grab this? I'm building a deck that might use this. Yeah. Thanks, man.
It's just like, it's so... The opportunity presents itself in a way that you don't necessarily find. Obviously, I'm going to shout out Scryfall again here. Specifically say, just keep scrolling. If you have a good search there, and even if there's shitloads of cards, if you've got the time, just go through like 3 pages of cards.
Especially if you've sorted by EDH rec rank, and all the really common played stuff is right on the first page.
Totally.
Skip to the last page. Have a look at that weird like page 9 of Scryfall, what comes up when you search for Knight in Art, and at the very back there'll be something from the Onslaught set from like the early 2000s.
100%. I remember when I was building my Mowu Loyal Companion deck, I was like actively looking for cards that gave just one counter, because at the time I was just building around specifically Mowu.
The +1 counter thing.
Yeah, and I was like, what's some repeatable effects that will give a counter every turn? And I found this bloody weird card. I'm just trying to pull it up now. Force Mage Advocate. This one is one that would come up if you were using that Scryfall search for art abs, by the way.
Oh, is it written?
It's an extreme. It's like an actually comically ripped guy. He looks kind of silly.
He looks like a washboard.
and not in a healthy way. He looks like there's something wrong with him. He's a 2/1. You tap him and return target card in an opponent's graveyard to their hand. Seems good. Put a +1 counter on target creature.
Okay.
So every turn, you're getting a counter, right?
I now remember the reason you managed to convince yourself to slip this in, because you can use that as a politics thing. You can be like, hey, that board wipe in your deck we really need right now.
Yeah.
Da-ding, there you go, have it back.
Missing a land drop? I see you've got an Evolving Wilds in there. Would you like to have that back? You know, and then like people just like let you have the thing and just ignore the fact that you're getting, in the case of Mowu, 2 counters every turn for 2 mana on a creature.
Gets excessive pretty quick, especially then you got like Mowu and Hardened Scales. That's 3 counters every turn. Like,
so good. I think I would like to end this section though just on a warning, which is that remember that your opponents also, while they want to have fun, they also want the game to end.
Yeah.
And so don't just keep going all in on just flavor and just fun, because you will eventually start reducing the power level of your deck to an extent where it's like, okay, how do you ever make the game end?
Yeah, like I'll shout out the Space Commander that actually gave us this episode, Wizard Down Under. He used to have a awesome Jace Bellerin themed deck.
Yes.
And
which would be a great use for that flavor. He's the one who put me onto the flavor search, by the way.
Oh, really?
On Scryfall.
Wizard
He was
Down
like,
did that.
you know, you can search by art, and you
That's
can search
insane.
by flavor, and I was like, wow, no wonder you could build a Jace deck, because there's like 10 cards that are actually Jace.
Yeah, but like specifically, I remember the conversation I had with him was around like, okay, is this a mill deck? Am I trying to draw my library and win with like a Labman type effect with Jace, Wield of Mysteries, I think is the one that wins when there are cards in library. And then he was like, there just isn't enough win cons. And unfortunately, sometimes that might be the downfall of the deck is, you know, it might not just be possible. But with new sets coming out, keep an eye out for the cards that will make that deck idea, that really weird, you know, this is the theme of my deck. I'm using this creature. I'm doing Kithkin Typal deck, whatever.
Yeah.
Find when new sets come out, if you see a card that will get that deck to having a win con, maybe it's possible now.
Yeah. Enjoy that flavor experience, but find a way to bring it to an end as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There is a plethora of information out there about the most powerful cards and decks in our format, but this information won't always push you towards your maximum joy. There's plenty of satisfaction to be had when you search for strategies, decks, and cards that you haven't seen before, and craft something truly creative that is entirely your own. So,
Space Commanders, command received. Wow, I thought this was going to be a quick conversation. We've been talking for like an hour and a half. Do you feel commanded, listeners?
Yeah.
How do you build outside of the box? What are the Scryfall searches you use?
Again, tell me more tools for my ridiculous obsession. You can get in touch with us in a bunch of ways. Twitter, Instagram, or Threads. We're at Get Commanded on all those platforms. You can, of course, check out our gameplay over on Twitch, twitch.tv/getcommanded. And the best way to hang out with us and actually chat with us and share your thoughts on cards and things that we do is the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server, which is linked in the show notes. And there's some other members of our playgroup in there, including Wizard Down Under.
Yeah. Thanks for this episode, BT Dubs.
Yeah.
And thank you for being one of our amazing patrons.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be at the point where we're business partners and talking to brands like, you know, Infinity Tokens and getting messaged by Masked Wolf on Instagram. Like, these things are insane, and we really wouldn't be able to do it without all of you. So we'd like to thank our patrons, Stella Tam, Fuzzy, Bottomless Potamus, and Fraser. And we'd also like to make this very special shout out to Fletcher Cutting and Wizard Down Under for supporting us in the Space Commander tier. You are the best.
You really, really are. And thanks, of course, to Palms Off Gaming, who sponsor this podcast. They make some amazing deck boxes, sleeves, binders, and other gaming accessories. And you can check them out at palmsoffgaming.com.au /#GetCommanded. You can get 10% off when you make your order. So thank you, Palms Off, and that's palmsoffgaming.com.au/# Get Commanded.
Yeah, when you Scryfall search cards that only contain people wearing the color yellow, you can get your Palms Off Gaming yellow sleeves to match.
You can also make those cards stand out when they're in the actual sleeve with the blackout sleeves, which are, of course, black on the inside.
They're so good.
It's true.
I love them.
That's all the magic stuff we have. Should we planeswalk out of here and into somewhere else? I think it's your turn.
It is my turn. And this is going to absolutely out us for how far in advance we record our episodes.
Okay.
It was Valentine's Day yesterday.
Oh, yes.
A corporate silly holiday that basically where capitalism says, spend money to prove you love the person you love every day, the same amount every day.
Yes, and the only way to measure that is with buying things.
Yeah, money. Money talks.
Money good.
But I want to shout out my wonderful boyfriend, Theo, who threw a absolute star standout and basically didn't spend any money on this, which is great. They made basically a indoor picnic for us with...
Oh, you sent me a photo of this.
I did. I was sending it to a few people because I was like, oh my God, I'm bragging. Look at my amazing partner.
Very, very romantic. There was like, the usual kind of candles and soft lighting and that kind of thing.
Had like a rug that was very fuzzy on the floor.
Yeah, but it was very like comfy wasn't it like, there was like 1v1 Magic was set up.
Yep.
There was like a board game as well.
There was Lego, Star Wars Lego was also a feature.
Lego was there. And then it was like, you guys watched a movie of your choice,
which was Solo, the Star Wars story.
Sick, yeah.
There was a massive charcuterie board. We drank strawberry mead, which was delicious. I've never had strawberry mead before.
Very fancy.
Very sweet. My God, it tasted like it was delicious, but it was like one of those things where you drink little bits at a time just to a little sweet treat.
Yeah.
But yeah, Valentine's Day was really fun. I usually don't do much for Valentine's Day, but Theo decided to do something. But also on Valentine's Day, little sub-planeswalk.
Yeah.
I want to shout out some more music, which we usually do in our planeswalk.
Sure.
And it's actually of a band that I'm currently, as you are listening to this episode, on tour with.
Yeah.
So this is Terra Rouge. Again, I think I might link her in the description for this one so you can check her out. But they... yesterday on Valentine's Day released their first debut album called So Fucking Over It. And the artwork for the album I'm just showing Walt here is really cool. It's like this red kind of...
oh, wow, that's sick.
Like sexy style artwork. It's awesome. But yeah, the album is very much about being a female rocker and hating men and stuff like that. So Valentine's Day naturally is the perfect day to release
perfect day to release.
So
I love that. Reclaim Valentine's Day for the single people.
It was actually really good marketing.
That's cool.
She hit the nail on the head. But she released it on Valentine's Day. Theo and I were rocking out when we were chilling at our little cuddle pad that we had set up. But tickets are on sale now. Go check her out.
And James will be there.
I'll be there. I'll probably be maybe at the merch table flogging some of her merch.
Cool.
It's going to be a really fun tour. We're going all the way up to Brisbane and all the way back and then to Adelaide as well. So
sweet.
Yeah, hence the reason why we're recording this episode in advance.
Nice. Well, that's all we have time for. So we'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
Goodbye, Commander players.